The Ottoman Empire, once a great power that threatened Europe's Christian order by 1913, was losing a war for its last European holdings. The Ottoman government chose to cut their losses and started peace negotiations, but the ultra-nationalist organization Committee of Union and Progress, or CUP, wanted to fight on. So, CUP members led by Enver Pasha carried out a coup. Upon gaining power, CUP resumed the war. For carrying out the coup, Enver Pasha was awarded with the position of Minister of War. Enver used this position to personally take over command over the force tasked to relieve the besieged city of Edirne. For this, he devised an offensive. However, before it could begin, he was injured by a stray artillery shell. Enver's command was taken over by his longtime rival, Mustafa Kemal, whom replaced Enver's battle plan with his own one. The subsequent offensive was a huge success. It not only relieved the city of Edirne, but also encircled a big amount of Bulgarian troops as well. Its success turned Mustafa Kemal into a national hero, a fact envied by Enver Pasha, who used his recently gained position as Minister of War to court-martial and unfairly convict Mustafa Kemal of insubordination. These actions caused immense public backlash, greatly reducing government's and Enver Pasha's personal popularity. The latter was not helped after Enver attached his name to his own offensive that failed catastrophically. It did not take long for Enver Pasha to get sacked, and to his dismay, the replacement was Mustafa Kemal. With war in a stalemate, peace was soon signed, ending the Balkan War. Over the next few years, Mustafa Kemal gained more and more power, eventually becoming head of government. He continued consolidating power, and a year later exiled Enver Pasha and other ultranationalist CUP members. Enver Pasha spent his time in exile planning yet another coup. At the start of the Great War, his endeavors started receiving Germans' funding, in exchange for a promise of Ottoman entry into a war on their side. But it was not to be. The coup was discovered and all conspirators in Anatolia were arrested. However, not long after, an opportunity presented itself. Russia, following a separate peace with the Germans, got embroiled in a civil war. Many ethnic groups formerly under their boot used this opportunity to declare their independence. One of such ethnic groups were the Central Asian Turks, who declared Turkestani autonomy, a state that seeks to become an autonomous part of a future Russian nation. For now, none of the Russian governments recognized it. Enver Pasha, together with other CUP exiles, set off to Turkestan, where they planned to convince or coup the local government into declaring full independence, and invading Russian-held Turkic-populated lands to unite them all to one state, Turan, a concept that seeks to unite all Turkic peoples. Upon his arrival, Enver Pasha offered his services to the Turkestani government. To his dismay, he was given a low-importance position, as Turkestan's government distrusted Enver due to his ultra-nationalism and role in 1913's Ottoman coup. Their fears were justified, as Enver Pasha was indeed planning another coup. But before he could execute it, yet another opportunity presented itself. Muslim and Turkic populations rebelled in the neighboring warlord state of Xinjiang, following stripping of long-held privileges from minorities. Most of the rebels were members of local Turkic ethnic groups, but Xinjiang was a good fit for Enver's Turanist ambitions. Enver Pasha deserted his position along with a small contingent of loyal troops and Ottoman exiles. When they arrived, rebels were on the brink of defeat, but Enver's forces managed to decimate the Chinese. The rebels were reinvigorated and joined Enver's ranks, while entire local Chinese units mutinied, refusing to leave their posts. Enver Pasha exploited this by circumventing them, quickly taking over most of Xinjiang. The only other actual battle during this campaign happened in Kashgar against the new governor's personal guard. It turned into a 56-day-long siege. Upon his victory, Enver Pasha executed the new governor and his followers, further boosting his high local popularity. With the rebellion's conclusion, Enver publicly announced his ambition to form Turan, a nation uniting all Turkic peoples. A goal that was not popular among the locals before Enver's declaration. For now, with his high personal popularity, Enver managed to use it to further expand and modernize his forces, while maintaining his regime's stability. While Enver was in Xinjiang, Turkestan finally received recognition of its autonomy. It did so from socially revolutionary controlled ULFA directory, which had recently broken off from the Whites to form the Green Movement. Autonomy became bitter quick as Green Movement's leadership was warm and happy to send Turkestani soldiers to the front lines. As casualties piled up, the war became increasingly unpopular. Discontent grew and on July 1, 1920 turned into a rebellion. Not wanting to miss out, local Enver supporters launched their own rebellion, while his main force invaded from Xinjiang. While some rebels joined Enver Pasha's forces, most sided with local traditional leaders, who were content to defend controlled land. But not Enver. He aimed his army north, where many Turkic people still lived under the Russian rule. By September, Enver Pasha's offensive had been halted. Worse yet, traditionalists were losing ground in the west, where full defeat would have opened recently captured Turkmen cities for a Russian attack. So, the Turanians retreated to more defensible positions and started covering some of the traditionalist front. At the same time, conscription was introduced in order to match the Russian forces in strength. The Greens, seeing Turanians retreat, pulled most of their own forces out to defeat a White push on Moscow. The Turanians immediately resumed their offensive, but the Greens soon returned, counterattacking once more. During the month of March, the Kingdom of Poland joined the war against the Greens, as it sought to destroy Russia as a unified entity. The Greens, in order to outflank the Turanians, invaded neutral states of Khiva and Bukhara. In response, Turanians shortened their front lines further, making use of Lake Balkhash and river Sirdarya as natural obstacles. June 15 saw the first deployment of elite Turanian mountaineer divisions. Both were sent to save the collapsing Emirate of Bukhara's front line. By August, we completely stabilized it. However, the Greens started making steady gains in the east, forcing one mountaineers division redeployment there. This caused an immediate resumption of the Green offensive in Bukhara. The lone mountaineer division was juggled around the front lines, stopping Russian advances. It was clear the state of affairs could not continue for long, so Stardust divisions began reinforcing the Bukharan front line, eventually restoring it to order. After more than 4 years of war, the intervention of the rogue Kwantung army on the side of Siberian whites rekindled a hope for victory. The Greens lacked the troops to deal with this new threat, so all their adversaries, including Turan, launched general offensives. With Green collapse imminent, Enver Pasha shifted his forces south in order to capture a land route to Turkey. Wu, ever since Enver's exile, was ruled by his arch-rival Mustafa Kemal. Enver dreamed of defeating him and uniting the Turks with the rest of Turkic peoples under his leadership. But for now, with the Green Russian surrender, he had a peace conference to attend to. Victory brought Turan control over almost all lands populated by Turkic peoples in former Russia. However, driven by desire for strategic depth and greed for industry, Enver Pasha chose to annex homogeneously Russian lands west of the Volga, including the city of Tsaritsyn. They and other strips of Russian land taken to connect Turkic populations created a large Russian minority, which Enver and other Turanists viewed as undesirable. A campaign of forced expulsions was undertaken in mixed communities. Later it started expanding to the western Volga bank. These expulsions often left affected areas with a shortage of white-collar workers, such as teachers and doctors. As under the Tsarist system, few non-Russians could experience higher learning required for the white-collar jobs. Following the Russian expulsion, areas were settled mostly by former Enver soldiers, or by conservative immigrants from Turkey, whom were unhappy with aggressive Mustafa Kemal's secularization reforms. One of them was the former Caliph and Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, Mehmed VI. Wu, under Mustafa's rule, was slowly stripped of power and in 1922 had both of his positions abolished and was later exiled. He was met warmly in Turan. Mehmed VI rallied the local Khans and Emirs to oppose Enver Pasha's attempt to centralize power, as he was opposed to the latter's ultranationalism. This ensured continuation of high autonomy for the influential local clans. Despite disagreements over autonomy with the Caliph, they were still united by a common enemy, so Enver Pasha officially declared Caliphate's abolition by Turkey to be unjust. Therefore, he declared Mehmed VI to still be the Caliph, a position that was considered by many to be the highest authority in the Sunni branch of Islam. Enver, however, did not do so for the more powerful Sultan's position. This caused conflict between Enver and Caliphs to rise, but before it could escalate, Mehmed VI suddenly died. Rumors soon emerged of his death being an assassination, but they were never substantiated. As Caliph's position under Ottoman law was hereditary, it passed to the late Caliph's cousin, who became
Abdul-Majid.
The new caliph was much more palatable to Enver Pasha. The next 4 years were quiet, with the exception of the frontier, where Russian partisans, many of whom veterans of the Russian Civil War, waged a guerrilla war. Turan's development was stifled by country's agrarian-focused approach, and its aristocracy, which opposed it, viewing it as unnecessary or even opposed to their values. Despite this, industry in the annexed Russian lands made Turan 10th in industrialization by 1929, though many of the factories did not operate in full capacity, because of the aforementioned expulsions taking a heavy toll on skilled workers. But with new Turkic replacements being trained, it seemed that Turan had a bright future ahead of itself, until these dreams were shattered by the Great Depression. With its arrival in Turan, the already slow modernization process stopped, and even started to regress. Enver Pasha countered the Great Depression with implementation of new and expansion of old social programs. These programs were to be implemented through the whole nation, but the autonomous Khans and Emirs saw it as an encroachment on their autonomy, and used their personal forces to block new policy implementation in their lands. This angered Enver Pasha, as Turan was already falling behind Turkey, which was under his long-time rival's Mustafa Kemal's rule. So Enver abolished all autonomous states and ordered the disarmament of all local forces. Few complied, most resisted, was starting the Turanian Civil War. The regionalists, as they came to be known, were spread all around the country, but most were concentrated on the Caspian Sea's eastern coast. They knew they had no chance of winning a prolonged conflict, so they started a mad dash to the nation's capital, Tashkent. Their offensive was successful at first, as multiple army units composed of troops from the rebelling territories defected to them. Traditionalists were stopped at the gates of Tashkent. With their momentum lost, regionalist armies quickly crumbled, and following the capture of Bukhara, disintegrated completely. Most surrendered, while others went underground, starting a guerrilla war. While regionalists themselves did little damage, the mass redeployment of forces from the frontier states allowed the Russian partisans to take over large swaths of territory. They were soon joined by over 200,000 defectors from Polish puppet states in former Russia, and by Siberian whites who invaded from the east. However, Kazakhstan's vast steppes, Polish aid, and fearsome Turanian resistance stopped Russian advances far away from any major Turkic population centers. And as quickly as they advanced, the Russians retreated to fortified positions behind the Ural River and the former border for the Siberians. After a few failed attempts to achieve a breakthrough, Turanians gave up, as few wanted to fight a costly war for a negligible Turkic minority still under the Russian rule, especially due to the still recent costly independence war. So, the war fizzled out. It had no formal conclusion, no agreement was signed. Turanians did not even recognize the new Russian state. All Turanian maps continued claiming it as Turanian territory. Enver Pasha was unhappy with this arrangement, but chose to wait for a more fortunate time. The world changed drastically between Enver Pasha's arrival in Central Asia and Turan's civil war's conclusion. While most countries fought the Great Depression with internal measures, its first victim, United States of America, took the term fight a lot more literally, and carried out invasions and occupations of all Latin American nations indebted to it. United States imposed harsh austerity measures and extracted occupation cost payments from its victims. While this policy produced great short-term benefits, helping US recover relatively quickly, it also destroyed USA's international reputation and turned almost the entire Latin American population against them, where resistance to occupations only grew. Meanwhile, in Europe, having lost the Great War, Germany was engulfed in a revolution, becoming the world's second communist state. It was soon followed by Sweden, Italy, and Spain, whom, while all neutral during the war, were greatly impacted by it economically. Europe's communist states were all shunned by their neighbors, so they banded together to form a military alliance called the European Combine. Early on in the communist rule, Germany refused to pay its war reparations, and then violated Versailles again by uniting with Austria, after local communists carried out a coup. France was too exhausted to start another war, so it settled on occupying Rhineland and extracting German reparation payments from there. Nascent communist Germany was in no position to meaningfully resist, so it sabotaged what it could and evacuated the area. As tensions continue to rise, it is clear that it's only a matter of time until Rhineland will be in international headlines again.